Well, look at this. There's three of us all of a sudden. It was me and Hunley. Now there's three of us.
Hey, I need another attorney, Mark.
You need another attorney. Here's one at the bottom of the screen.
Everybody out there, you can send in your memes of Eric in jail. Eric finds those really funny. He finds the whole thing.
Oh yeah, it's a riot.
Like no big deal. This is cool. This is chill. He's getting his prison tattoos already made just to get in preparation in advance. Eric, did you ever think you'd be in the middle of a legal, controversial, going to jail possible scandal?
No. No, I mean, why should I be? It makes less than any kind of sense. Have you heard of this kind of thing?
You talking to me? Yeah, I have. I've been a journalist. This has happened to me, so for sure.
What was the story in which where you experienced something similar?
Myself?
Yeah.
I mean, sources where I would actually try to cooperate with the DEA and shut down illicit rehabs here in Los Angeles. I was actually working with the DA's office and the DEA at certain points. And I mean, not that they threatened me with jail time, but they wanted me to give up certain sources within these rehabs. And I didn't want to do it, but I wasn't under the pressure that Eric was under, where there's an aggressively overzealous, nutty prosecutor who apparently wants to look at Eric's internet porn on his phone.
Hey, now that's sacred. Some things are sacred, Mark.
Right.
Is there any update, Eric, on the status? Did they issue the search warrant? Do you know?
Nothing. Not a word. So I just get to sit and wait.
They're probably scrolling through right now. Oh, he's got that source. He's got that source. They're probably looking at all the Groubert dangerous conspiratorial messages that are
right. Oh, right. I mean, well, first of all, welcome back, Robert Barnes, on a day, one of the biggest days, the Christmas of lawyers who follow the Supreme Court. Robert Barnes has stepped into our gin joint of all the different gin joints in America he could have come into. He stumbled into our gin joint to help us, and you people should appreciate it at home. And the idea that he would come on this little Pishka channel and tell us about Supreme Court decisions is like Christmas for me. So it's a big day, Robert, right?
Yeah, well, maybe a future Supreme Court case will be Hunley versus the prosecutor for the state of New Mexico.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
In jail a couple of years, waiting it out, to make some great case law.
Right. It might take as long as Mink versus Southers, for Christ's sake, yes. Which started in 2003, Robert?
Yeah, I mean, some of these cases took forever. I mean, for those people's comparison out there, and for anyone who doesn't know the backstory, I mean, Eric can give. Why don't you give everybody the backstory for those who may not know?
Oh, Eric,
Eric Hunley might be going to jail.
You're almost as bad as your show partner for.
Viva was rather torturous.
Yeah. I felt. And he was like, "Hey, don't bring me into it. I don't have anything. I'm not in the messages. I'm not his lawyer. Please."
At one point, the screen went blank. I thought Viva had cut off communication in the show there for a while, Eric.
Do you see Viva's top 10 movie list? It's like it alternates between goofy comedy and I want to go scalp somebody. I mean, it's like, Happy Gilmore, Thin Red Line. I was like, that was the combination.
They had Madison, Happy Gilmore. I told him Adam Sandler called me and he wanted his Punch Drunk Love copy back. What a weird combination. I'm surprised he left out the remake of The Longest Yard with Adam Sandler, which was a complete debacle.
Or maybe add, a Hannibal Lecter. I mean, because he's got, Dr. Strangelove, Thin Red Line. He's got, Goodfellas. I mean, these I described it as the goofy humor side. Adam Sandler's side is the Canadian side of Viva.
Right.
The Thin Red Line, Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Bastards is the ex-Canadian side of Viva.
Well, my new show is Viva and Butthead, not Beavis and Butthead, Viva and Butthead. The two sides of this guy, when you say, I had a brother who was his age who did the same exact thing, the same exact cultural references that Viva does, talking about poop or duty or exactly the same age as Viva. But what a weird, he did go to film school though, so maybe that's why.
So yeah, what's the background and any update there?
The long and short of it is that essentially, since we've been reporting early on, we heard that there was plinking going on. Like literally, our first episode, we talked about it, and then I got feedback saying no, that was a rumor. So I've made a point of saying over and over and over for years now that there was no plinking going on. Last week, one of my sources said there was plinking going on, and I was like, oh, and it's a pretty good source. So I was like, okay, so I reported, hey, I may stand corrected here. I heard from a source that there was in fact plinking going on before call times. And I was like, cool. I reported that. And then another source reached out to me saying, hey, can you tell me who your source was? And I'm like, well, no, just like I'm not saying who you are, I'm not saying who they are. And then reached back and said, hey, if I put you with a prosecutor and they're going to give you anonymity, can you say who the source is? I'm like, no, I'm really not comfortable with that. And on and on. And then all of a sudden, it was the prosecutor on Monday who reached out and said, what is it? I can actually find the stupid message, but he's essentially, this is Carrie Morrissey. Please call me back. Things are moving really fast here, or something like that.
Are you surprised you had your personal cell phone number?
Well, no, because here we go. It's Carrie Morrissey. Please return my call. Things are moving quickly on my end. Well, the source, it was talking through her. So, the source had my number, and obviously the source handed off my information, which isn't completely surprising. But anyway.
Maybe we should explain what plinking is. Plinking is just people shooting at cans and bottles for recreational purposes, which occurs, just to clear the air, this occurs on almost every Western I've ever heard of in terms of the gun people and people with guns and other people with live ammo, usually done off the set on downtime, not unusual. Wouldn't be unusual if plinking occurred on this film, like every other film. It's just a recreational thing to do with your guns. And, I'm just surprised that at this hour of the case, they're now going after this plinking idea. Which is more important in the case is they're now accusing Hannah Gutierrez Reed, the armorer in the case, whose father is the legendary Thel Reed, by the way, the Andy Granatelli of armorers. The Reed is now Hannah Reed is now being accused of passing off narcotics to another member of the crew before she was going to be questioned, Robert. This is really scurrilous because it's being leaked by the prosecution. They won't give up the name of the person, even though they want the name of the source from Hunley. They won't give up the name of the person who was accusing Reed of this, saying that she will eventually be named, but would like to stretch out the amount of time that she's named for her own comfort level. Robert.
Wow. And so in the middle of this, you get back on the call with the prosecutor, but you were smart enough not to be on there alone.
Right. I had to wait. Nate is actually, Nate's near where you are right now, I think. But he finally had time. So I did a 3-way call and I said, hi, this is Eric Hunley and I'm with Nate Brody. And she said, who? And that was the end of my conversation with her. Nate took over immediately, said, I'm Nathaniel Brody, Esquire, We kind of want to know, what are you looking for here? What's going on? And things kind of got a little bit heated, a lot of your client. And ultimately search warrant. And then Nate started saying journalist. She said, I'll tell you what, I'm hanging up now and I'm filing.
Don't.
And
you heard nothing since?
Nothing.
Now, the reason why she's likely talking about search warrant is the proper protocol in this kind of case. For those out there, there's both a state, it varies by state. In some states, there's a common law privilege for journalists to withhold their confidential sources. Not all states recognize it. In the federal system, there's a federal common law privilege that governs it. And then there's some federal statutes that have some implication on it. And the way this typically gets litigated is in a state where there is a common law privilege, either under federal or state law, or a statutory privilege, where the legislature has passed laws, Committee for the Freedom of the Press has lobbied over the past decade plus for a lot of states to pass standardized journalist, what they're called are shield laws. So the right to shield the confidential information, and particularly the identity of any source of information where there's confidentiality that's been promised, protected. And New Mexico has a pretty robust confidentiality law provision. And the way this is supposed to get litigated is if the prosecution believes, or if you're involved in a civil suit, and they believe the journalist information, the shield, can be breached, so either because they think the source really isn't confidential, it's been publicly disclosed in some context, or because there's really some compelling public interest, and the most narrowly limited means to support that interest is the getting that information. So they're supposed to exhaust all other means of acquiring the information, and the information should be compelling to for the government's interest to be able to procure it and breach it. But the way that's supposed to be litigated is they issue a subpoena, and then sometimes out of a grand jury, sometimes a civil case that issues out of the court, and then you get served the subpoena, you file a motion to quash the subpoena, and a court gets to adjudicate, okay, is this information actually protected or not under the circumstances present. And in New Mexico, not only has a broad state law provision, but federal common law is very strong. And there's another statute that's applicable that most people don't know about, but specifically designed for journalists in part, the Federal Privacy Protection Act. And what that does, it says you can't gather information from the media outside of certain circumscribed circumstances. So there's an analogous case that happened a few decades ago where it was a college publication. Somebody, I think, was it a parody the guy was writing? He was doing something that was,
Oh, you're talking about Mink? Yeah, there's a picture of Mink right there. It's Thomas Mink out of Greeley, Colorado. He was an editor for the Harvard Lampoon of Northern Colorado University, NCU, I think it's called, UNC, University of Northern Colorado. And he had written under accusing a professor of certain things, Junius Peak, and he called him Junius Puke and put a little Hitler mustache on him. That's the extent of his crimes, Robert. For that, they cited him with some Colorado state statute, which is a level 6 felony called criminal libel, Robert. Is that a thing?
It was declared unconstitutional by the U.S. Supreme Court about 50 years ago, but that didn't stop him from raiding him. For those that don't know, that was Mark Groubert's illegitimate son. But basically, it's like
that's my boy. That's my boy.
Exactly, right off the old block. But basically, they go and they raid the guy's house. They execute a search warrant, and why would a prosecutor use a search warrant? Because a search warrant doesn't allow a subpoena. A search warrant isn't served on you. Unless the search is of your personal premises or premises under your control.
Right.
So the reason why she was threatening a search warrant is she knew, okay, I'll just go and get all your phone records. I'll go and get all your email records. I'll go and get all your DM records. And it's a threat that scares most people because they have no means of protecting themselves. They realize then the person can do a fishing expedition and anything else that might percolate or pop up in there. Mm-hmm. And it gets all kind of sources of other information. And it, again, completely circumvents judicial review. Even though a judge is supposed to sign off on it, that usually is a rubber stamp these days. And so you can only contest it after the fact. And that's why, the fact she threatened a search warrant, she's also circumventing the problem of interstate enforcement of a state search. A state subpoena, she's got to, unless you voluntarily accept service, she's got to get service. She's got to get another state to sign off. That can be tricky. Sometimes another state's courts can get involved. That can be tricky. A search warrant executed outside of the state can get tricky. A couple of years ago, they had a search warrant raid go totally AWOL, I think in Ohio, based on misinformation they were given out of the Northern District of California, that ended up, or the state of California, and that led to all kinds of blowback, civil rights suits, everything else. So a New Mexico prosecutor doesn't want anyone else reviewing their work.
Right.
So and they don't want you challenging it or a court reviewing it. So they issue a search warrant so that you don't know about it, and they go and try to get your text phone message records from the phone provider directly, from the email provider directly.
Is it possible that they have the other side of the text messages from another phone, Robert?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
no. They do. They do have the other side of
Okay,
the source that connected me.
Right.
For sure. That was addressed in the phone call.
Right.
I'm looking at texts with fill in the blank right now.
Right.
And
did she mention the name or?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. With Nate.
Yeah.
But I guess the big question, Robert, is, well, what's my recourse? I mean, if they can hit the phone company, what do I do? I mean, I'm just a person here.
Federal civil rights suit. So what the 10th Circuit established is that a prosecutor who does this, if they do it directly, they're liable under both Section 1983 of Title 42 and the Privacy Protection Act. Like the Howling Pig case, they got out of one but not the other because the prosecutor didn't directly execute the search. But here it's clear this prosecutor is. And let's say this prosecutor didn't execute the search. Whatever agent did can be sued under 1983. And
wasn't that the result of the Howling Pig case that Susan Knox, the deputy DA, lost her immunity by the court finally, and rarely or never before ruling? Is that the?
Yep.
Oh, it was a precedent. Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and it's precedent in New Mexico.
Right.
And so the net effect of it is that the prosecutor can be sued, can have to pay damages if they're directly involved in either the procurement of the warrant or the execution. If they're involved in the execution of the warrant, they can be sued under the Federal Privacy Protection Act. So basically, they open themselves up, and depending on how plausible the allegations are, the standing to sue would be whether the search warrants actually happened or not. But she's given credibly. Yeah, what Nate or someone can do can send a letter saying our understanding is you're executing a search warrant. We believe it violates these principles. Because the problem with a search warrant, like a subpoena, she could say she has plausible reasons for this information. Let a judge decide. But for a search warrant, she needs evidence of probable cause that you've committed a crime. You can't just go execute a search warrant because you think there's evidence that somebody else committed a crime.
Right.
And so that's the problem. Is the reason why she's liable under 1983 and under the Federal Privacy Protection Act is there's no probable cause here by her own admission and acknowledgement. She has no evidence that you, Eric Hunley, have committed a crime. And so she's basically misusing and abusing her power to seize information that violates constitutional and statutorily protected rights. And it's statutorily protected under federal law, statutorily protected under New Mexico state law. And so you can add some New Mexico state law claims on top of that. And that's their risk, is that, and then if they lose, they have to pay your attorney's fees in the process.
Ooh,
so that's the remedy.
Now, in this particular case with Mink versus Southers, the kid finally won a judgment of $425,000, which is fine. I was astounded to learn that the wonderful ACLU took
he got
$400K and the kid ended up with $25,000, Robert. I mean,
that's not bad for the kid. I mean, for one raid, $25,000, and they make you famous for being a journalistic hero.
Right.
For sticking it to the man.
His attitude was good. He said, well, that covered probably my bar bills for all the time. And that's
right. No, he was funny. He was funny, Mink. Yeah, he's still down there. He's still down there, by the way. I reached out to him. We'll see if we can get him on a show at some point later on this month.
Oh, that'd
be fun.
Yeah. But it's a class 6 felony. Is that possibly true?
Yeah, I mean, it used to be criminal defamation. Used to be a crime in a bunch of states, and it's what the U.S. Supreme Court said. Pretty much, criminal defamation can't exist; that it violates the First Amendment.
Well, which brings me to the case I was talking to Hunley about before. Was the one where we were sued, or I was sued, and the magazine National Lampoon by Merv Griffin Productions. This laughing, closeted gay man took umbrage with the fact that I did a parody of his show and called it "Sexual Jeopardy: The Home Game." I later gave it to Howard Stern, who turned it into a live performance. But this was Sexual Jeopardy: The Home Game. We were sued in federal court. We had to show up in federal court. The judge in his robes was reading it up on the bench, on the high bench, started laughing his ass off and threw it out under parody law. This kid was in the same, there's the other side of it, Sexual Jeopardy. This is from a 1986 issue of National Lampoon magazine when I was an editor there. This kid, my son, my illegitimate son, Thomas Mink, must have gone to my school and learned of my situation and did a parody of one of the professors, making him out to be a Hitler-like dweeb. And that's how that case took off. It could have gone worse. I mean, mine went federal. This was a state case, Robert. So there's a little difference, obviously, between the federal and the state. But the judge just laughed his ass off. We were in there 5 minutes before we left. So that was pretty efficient.
Wow.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to play the first part of the show back to Nate and say, "Hey, Nate,
yeah, get a load of this, Nate.
Let's look into this. What do we do next?"
Yeah. I think it's a fun case for some of us.
Well, I'll be doing my own show from the rest of the year, so you
live
viewers
from
at home.
inside Albuquerque jail, America's Untold Stories.
I have zero.
You have tons of material you could get there.
Right. I mean, I did my time, Eric. You could do your time. That's an episode.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I will be traveling to Santa Fe to watch the trial now.
Well, I will. I'll go down there. I'll go down there undercover. I'll be doing a what's the guy's name? Andrew Stein, the 99 Andrew Stein. Alex Stein. I'll be doing an Alex Stein down there. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's apparently a hearing about Hannah. There's supposed to be a week-long hearing in a couple of weeks.
August, I believe.
Right?
Yeah, I've got it down.
Probable cause hearing, whether or not there's grounds to bind her over for the substance. Because
a week? It takes a week to do that, or no?
I guess so. I normally know, but I'm guessing because of the unusual nature of the prosecution of her case. And that's probably why they're trying to throw in drugs and other charges. They're trying to escalate the risk and exposure to try to coerce a plea deal. Right. Obviously, it's a rogue prosecutor to even be dumb enough to threaten that on the phone.
Well, I mean, the idea about the cocaine is bizarre because, they're now going to say that somebody who is in possession of cocaine says that she gave him the cocaine. I mean, it could be their cocaine. I mean, that's the oldest trick in the book. It's not my cocaine. I got it from Robert. Well, where's Robert? I don't know. He left. That's like right out of some R. Crumb comedy or something, like, Ralph Bakshi kind of thing. It's not my coke.
Clearly, they didn't find any drugs on her.
Right.
So they're trying to charge her indirectly with possession in a way that's very unheard of.
Right. That's my question. Why didn't they charge with possession?
Because they don't have possession. Right. She didn't have possession. To be fair, one of the earliest things I said when we started this 1,700 episodes ago was drug use and alcohol. And that was my original take. Having been in this world, there is nobody who's not hungover in the gun department and other departments on a set like this. And there is drug use and there is drinking. So I don't know how you factor that in criminally, but it's part and parcel goes with the terrain of that indie world, Robert.
It reminds me of some famous producer who was trying to get John Milius to finish a film, and I forget which one it was, and they couldn't get him doing it, and he was partying up, something like he promised him like a bunch of hookers and cocaine if he got it done within a certain time frame.
Oh,
hookers and blow.
Yeah, no, we had that even at Lampoon when we were behind deadline. We'd show up at our desks and there was a little party gift to give us some energy to finish the issue. I mean, this cuts across all different media,
Well, it's fascinating. I was watching the Pedro Gonzalez, who's competing for worst sidebar guest of the year ever, along with a few others, Jenna Ellis, etc. Right. Breitbart outed him this week for his Nick Fuentes stage of Jew-hating, race-baiting, and wanting to get into a racial civil war.
Wow.
And he's someone who was vouched for by Amanda Milius, the daughter of John.
Wow.
Milius.
Wow.
And so she was pissed. And so she started going after him. I mean, the way she really is a chip off the old block of her father. Because she's like, I feel like having some Mexican for lunch today. And so she launched on Pedro Gonzalez and explained why. But it was amazing. Some of the responses of people were like, who are you? And it's like, how do you not know who a man? It's like these people who think they're in the know in the movement. These DeSantis, a lot of them are DeSimps for DeSantis, who don't know Amanda Milius in terms of don't know who her father is, but don't know plot against the president. Right. Don't know if she was a high-ranking state. I mean, she forfeited an easy career in Hollywood to go work in the Trump administration, knowing it would make her persona non grata through large parts of Hollywood. I mean, she had a successful independent film at a USC film school. I mean, she was on easy street track, forfeited it all to go into trying to serve the Trump administration in sort of a populist revolution. He was doing great work at the State Department, got frustrated by Pompeo and all the insanity there, and went out and made Plot Against the President, which has still been the best documentary about the Trump administration made to date.
Yeah,
and had like 7 or 8 films lined up. I mean, yeah, she's going to use some of Eric's footage from the John McAfee interview, doing a John McAfee documentary. And these people were responding like they didn't know who she was in defense of Pedro Gonzalez, who clearly went, full Nazi for a little while. But now he's on the DeSantis camp. I mean, the guy's just like grifting.
Is DeSantis using bots now for his campaign? Is that
clearly? And he's getting caught like he's stepping on local Iowa people. He's stepping on local New Hampshire people.
No,
he's just running like an arrogant, condescending campaign. It turns out a lot of the reason why Florida congressmen and state legislators, and even the Miami mayor, is running in the presidential race, and the others have endorsed Trump rather than him, is they said DeSantis has been a complete prick. The whole, like, he won't return phone calls, won't engage them personally. So it's a lack of a retail personal touch that's being exposed.
Right.
And his campaign's going nowhere fast. He's sinking like oblivion. But you got all these dissimp types like Pedro Gonzalez is. I mean, he was getting really nasty with Jenna Ellis. They were going after, like, some people were asking me, why am I going after both of them? I don't care that they were fake on Sidebar. They presented themselves one thing. And
you had this guy on once? I
had Pedro Gonzalez on, and we had Jenna Ellis on.
Okay.
And my complaint with them is that they were not as advertised, that they misled. Like Jenna Ellis she was going to take a stand against the state bar, and then she capitulated, and I might have made it.
Okay, wow.
But all of that wasn't what bothered me. Them becoming DeSimps for DeSantis, I didn't really care one way or the other about. It was they were going around trying to smear Carrie Lake to such a degree. They were trying to suggest Carrie Lake was having an affair with Trump.
What?
And that's how nuts their behavior was. And I was like, okay, well, now everything's going to come out. Jenna Ellis is an incompetent lawyer that nobody sane would ever hire, and that Pedro Gonzalez is a race-baiting grifter who grifts from one thing to the next. And it's like, everything's fair game now. If you're going to get nasty and personal, you don't get to have immunity from the same line of attack. And what all this kind of relates to, the big Supreme Court this week, is what people don't know is how much affirmative action is rooted in a the whole idea of race as a biology and racism and racial hatred mostly originates from various anti-Semitic campaigns in the 13th and 14th century.
That's right.
By the Spain and the Portuguese, and it extended there. And affirmative action itself, the last variation of it was the Ivy League excluding Jews in the 1910s, 20s, and 30s.
Yep.
And a real affirmative action was about helping rich kids. Like, how do they have their legacy admissions, which means if your great granddaddy went to school there, you got in. Donor-based admissions, rather than all the scams of people trying to buy a scholarship to get their kid in, you would just make a donation and get in. How would that be upheld when it's clearly racially discriminatory? Well, you create affirmative action for rich black kids and to give you an idea how bad the Puerto Rican affirmative action was at Yale. It was basically overwhelmingly kids from the Spanish aristocracy.
Wow, that's weird.
It wasn't Last of the Puerto Ricans, Al Pacino, the film Carlito's Way, where he's playing a Puerto Rican, putting that aside. It was nothing like those. My roommate was working class kid from Puerto Rico. He would constantly complain about it. It's like all the so-called Puerto Ricans here overwhelmingly come from like 10 generations back of Spanish aristocracy. He goes,
the white ones do for sure. There's black Puerto Ricans.
He said they're Blanco de Blanco. He's like, these are not Puerto Rican from New York.
Right.
These are not Puerto Ricans, to paraphrase Al Pacino, who, by the way, managed to be a father this week.
I know, it gives me some hope. Yeah, he's
De Niro. De Niro did that, and so Pacino had to follow immediately.
Right.
Of course, his.
Well, that girl who was the mother of his child went out with others before this, including Clint Eastwood. This is, yeah, this girl
So
gets
she has a
around.
type. She has a
Oh,
type.
no, she has a type, my friend. She has a particular type, and also
The
a
Anna
degree.
Nicole Smith type, we'll say.
She has a degree. No, well, she has a degree in film production from USC and has produced a couple of films. So there is more to it.
The documentary on Anna Nicole Smith is interesting. I didn't realize she was tight with that billionaire before she ever became famous.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
she actually turned him down for marriage for years. Like you get a different variation of, like, the caricature of her really didn't fit the dynamic of the relationship between the two of them. I mean, obviously there are people that, had issues.
Sure.
But, it's like, oh, that was actually kind of a real relationship there in ways that the media narrative, though there was a funny meme today going around the board, which is, they said, we'll get this great heartwarming story. This man wins the lottery, and 2 days later, meets the love of his life. And so you get the inference of what's taking place. But it was less in that version than other versions presented. But affirmative action case was huge. But with the real backstory, like Bobby Kennedy was saying, okay, this is going to return universities to privileged places. It's actually just the opposite. Affirmative action is what was allowing legacy admissions to happen, what was allowing donor-based admissions to happen, because both of those are discriminatory and disparate impact, arguably an intent as well. And the way affirmative action was worked, Henry Louis Gates himself said it. He said, if we made a documentary and made a movie about affirmative action in the Ivy League, it wouldn't be called Straight Outta Brooklyn. It'd be called Straight Outta Brookline.
Right. Oh, yeah.
These were the upper middle class. They're like my Puerto Rican friends' example, that it was the Spanish aristocracy being let in as the Hispanic members.
Why couldn't they just base it on economics, Robert? I don't understand that. Why do they need to let middle class kids in there of whatever race?
Because they don't really want the working class kids there.
I was just giving.
By the way, U is right down the road from me, which is the original HBCU, historically black university. Do you think it's a bunch of black kids from Hampton because we're a majority black city? Nope. They're all out of Chicago. Obama has appeared at Hampton U, I think 5 or 6 times during his presidency. It's all the people living near him in Chicago. It's a very specific black student type.
Oh, absolutely. It's overwhelmingly, the reason why Justice Jackson was so mad about it is because she represents the success story, so-called, of it, which is of the upper middle class. It's kind of like the South African political experiment. It has mostly nurtured and enriched a black upper middle class at the expense and to the detriment often of the black working class.
Well, just to be clear, the Asians are the new Jews.
Oh, the Asians are the most hit.
Right. I mean, come on. I mean, this kid Yang out of Canada had like a 750 SATs. He was on multiple sports things. Every club, rejected by 6 Ivy League schools, Robert. I mean, he looks like a Jew to me. He's
Mark wants to adopt him. Mark is like,
that's well, this goes back to Tsarist Russia and also to Germany, old Germany, like Robert was talking about, in the late 1800s, where the Jews dominated the educational areas of society, and they started to put quota systems on Jews in those colleges, universities in Europe. And then it drifted over to here during the eugenics movement, and it led the Jews and now the Asians to step up their game. That's what led to the supremacy of the Ashkenazis. That's what's leading to the educational supremacy of the Asians. It's because of the suppression and repression, Robert. That's what made us as a small group be way out of proportion with various awards and various situations like the Asians are doing now.
And it was disproportionately the working class within those groups that were punished.
Yep.
So like your upper middle class kid often still got in. But and that part of it was a class bias process. Another part of it was creating the foundation for wokeism more broadly. Because if you're targeting this upper middle class identified by their immutable trait, and you're excluding working class people with a diverse life experience that might contest that, then the net effect of it is you have a bunch of people who will enroll in, feminist, intersectionalist, trans, whatever nonsense. You create the financial basis for it because of enrollment for it, which in turn creates the job for it. You create the administrative bureaucracy, the bloated bureaucracy that has consumed college campuses. That's been the primary expense. And it's basically to give your lefty pals a job, your upper middle class lefty pals a job.
Yep.
And none of it serves the interests of the working class of any race.
No, not at all. The CCNY, the old Lenny Bruce joke was we had to go to community college in New York, the only place we could get in. CCNY, circumcised citizens in New York. That was the old working class Jew. It's the only schools we can get into. So who were in there? Atomic scientists who later developed the A-bomb, Einstein types, all these insane, incredible brainiacs were in the community college in the New York City system.
Oh, and so, I mean, the net effect of this is also a mindset shift from collective approach to an individual approach. That that not to look at someone, like some people were worried because the Supreme Court said, yeah, you can take into consideration someone's experience of racism as it relates to character or something else, and that makes eminent sense. Because that's lived experience, but that's not what they were. That requires an individual-based assessment, and that's precisely what they were trying to avoid.
Yeah. Well, this kid Yang talks about how he intentionally and his peers de-Asianed their resumes on all different levels the insidiousness of this is breathtaking. What they made these kids have to do to even attempt to get into those Ivy League schools, which led to failure anyway. Instead of Asian pride, they did the reverse. Like he took off, this is just one example. He took off that he was a classical piano player because he felt that might be perceived as too Asian, Robert.
When I went to Yale, my first roommate was from France, and he was all excited about being my roommate until I got there. And I didn't realize why. And then he hated me for weeks. I ended up getting roommates with the Puerto Rican buddy of mine from New York, who became my roommate at Yale. But the French guy was he was one of these sort of proto-commie, proto-woke lefties. Right. And the reason why he thought I would be his perfect roommate is he thought, he's poor working class from the South, talks negligent and populism, he must be black. He thought I was he was going to have a Negro American as a roommie. And he's like, oh my God, it's a redneck. And it was like his worst nightmare. You know,
when I went to Bard, I had a guy show up at my door. I got the room. I was in John Jacob Astor's manor house, which Astor had donated to Bard, his mansion. So I said, oh, this is the greatest room of all time. I had a terrace overlooking the Hudson River. I went, oh my God. And I had a scholarship. I was coming from a working class background, you know, like yourself. And the door, there's a knock on the door, and there's a guy in a complete chauffeur's uniform with a footlocker. And he said, where shall I put Master Turner's belongings? And I said, who the F is Master Turner? And he says, well, he's the son of the CEO of 7-Up. And I said, well, he's not coming in here. And I shut the door on the guy, and he ended up getting another room and a roommate. And I ended up with Stephen Pucci, a Puerto Rican from the Bronx who was a conga player. So watch what you pray for.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, it was educational about how they, like the one thing that didn't exist at Yale was class. They were all upper middle class kids. They believed that everything was flyover country. They were New York, Chicago, LA. Right. They might have gone to public school, but it was the very affluent elite public schools. You know, like the one Alex Berenson went to in New York, Horace Mann. You know, those kind of places. Right. Not at all working class backgrounds whatsoever. The class gap was massive when I was there. Right. I mean, I remember it was important. Like we were raising money for Habitat for Humanity. And they came up with a poorly marketed jersey for the Yale merchandise for the Yale audience, because it was Clinton. It was 1992, Clinton Bush, fall of 1992.
Who are they, Yale Bulldogs or something, Robert? Is that the
Bulldogs?
Yeah.
And the T-shirt said, had Clinton and Bush, and said, no matter who wins, Yale wins. Well, Yaleys are all lefties, and so they didn't like that T-shirt. Yeah. I was like, look, we're raising money to help build houses in Kentucky. Use it as a rag. I don't care, but none of them would pay for it. And it was a crap. Even though I got a scholarship to an elite Southern private school, so I was familiar with some of it, but the scale of snobbery at Yale.
Oh, no, same as Bard. I mean, I was shocked what I stumbled into that world. I mean, we just did an episode. You talk about the schools in New York. We did an episode last week on Freddie Prinze, who was half Puerto Rican, half German. and he went to LaGuardia School of Performing Arts, which is part of that elite public school system you're referring to, where you have to apply to get in. And de Blasio and others on the left in New York were trying to get rid of the Bronx High School of Science and Brooklyn Tech and LaGuardia, because they claimed that it wasn't open enough to the entire city. Many of whom are sniffing glue and would love to go to Brooklyn Tech. It couldn't last a week in Brooklyn Tech. I couldn't go to Brooklyn Tech and survive. The nerdiest of the nerds of New York would go to Bronx High School of Science or Brooklyn Tech. And the same is true for with the arts, with LaGuardia School of Performing Arts around Lincoln Center, which is where Freddie went as a Puerto Rican.
Yeah, I mean, it was like one crash course after the other. Because I remember people would go home frequently for certain weekends, or parents would come in for certain weekends. And their weekends, it would be me and the 10 other poor kids at Yale.
Yeah.
And people would ask me why I wouldn't go out and do certain things that cost money. And I always just want to punch them in the face. It's like, the worst thing they did was that the first work study they gave me, for those that don't know, that you work like 10 hours a week and it pays for part of your tuition.
Right.
And it's federally subsidized. They gave me the worst position for certain political futures. They had me cleaning up. I was the bus boy at the end of the cafeteria. So you brought me your dirty dishes.
Oh no!
And I had to take your dirty dishes.
No, I just became a drug dealer. I found an easier, softer way and supplied the campus with drugs. But one of the first guys I met was a friend. First guy I met was a kid named Kenny Olmsted. So I said, what did your grandfather do? He says, he designed Central Park. I said, thanks for stopping by. Frederick Law Olmsted was his grandfather, for Christ's sake. I said, I can't relate to this guy. I hooked up with another guy. I go, what does your dad do? He goes, he's a federal judge on the 10th Circuit Supreme. And I'm going, oh, Jesus Christ, I'm doomed here, Robert.
Oh, yeah, that job only lasted a week. Because I mean, what was interesting was there was a group of us that were let in at the last year of the admissions dean at the time. And we didn't know the significance at the time. So, you get your admissions letter. At the bottom of it, he'd written it's people like you who belong here, signed by the dean himself. I didn't know that I thought, that's a smart marketing niche. I had no idea that he only wrote that for like 20 students of the students he got in. That was not a common thing until I got to Yale. And there was a buddy of mine who grew up homeless on the streets of New York City. He had all kinds of stories. In fact, the way that was one of those admitted. And like his favorite thing to do was to sit down at Yale cafeteria, the big cafeteria, just at some random table, and just start regaling people with some of his stories growing up. And they'd always sit there like shocked, don't know how to respond, don't know how to answer.
Right.
Old school Italian kid, funny guy.
We had go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I mean, but we only got in because of the dean, his move at the very end, because we didn't realize till we got there how working class kids just didn't exist in the Ivy League anymore.
Right. Wow, that's weird, because we had a little niche also. We had a guy who came in to become president when I was there was a guy named Leon Botstein. And we had a little mock parade to welcome Leon Botstein, where we took, I think, about 20 fluorescent tubes and made a 60-foot bong out of it with a ladder, where Frog, from previous episodes that I've told, who I went to college with, climbed on top of the ladder while somebody torched it down below and took a hit off this 60-foot bong made of fluorescent tubing to celebrate Botstein's inaugural, which he was making into a royal thing, this new president of Bard. And it turns out the reason I'm mentioning it is whose name pops up in Epstein Island a couple of weeks ago? Leon Botstein. And he says, no, it was just fundraising. There's a picture of Frog, who I went to college with, who built the 60-foot bong. That's from the Sonora House recording studio we had. But Leon Botstein and Noam Chomsky both escape any sort of scrutiny because it's so far-fetched that Chomsky would be, or Botstein, everyone, no, I didn't want to go there. That's too creepy. Noam Chomsky, he's a cunning linguist, but I never thought it was that cunning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then Botstein also escaped scrutiny.
Well, actually, when I was at Yale, they were trying to get a new university president. And the rumpus was like the Babylon Bee of the Yale campus.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And they're real sarcastic. And there was a buddy of somebody would join our political group later on financial aid and policy, but a working class kid, Sam Ingersoll, who had run for Yale president a couple of times, a funny guy. And to make fun of the new, I think it was Richard Levine, the new Yale University president, the Rumpus put out the 455 candidates they tried to make president before Richard Levine.
No.
And 4 different times they put Sam's name, on the list. That's how I got to know Sam. And then Sam, we ended up organizing the Yale about my sophomore year, went into the old university library that's where all the Masons, you can still go there now. In the late 1800s, there was a labor strike and Yale crushed it. And there were some, Masons and construction workers who had died that led to the strike. And so to permanently get their revenge, the Masons had carved in relief and sculpture and stone inside the library a bunch of things making fun of Yaleys.
Wow.
So most Yaleys had no idea. So I love to go there. And I love the irony of it. That's why I stumbled across the Yale Alumni Monthly magazine, which I was a sophomore. I get into like the second page of it, and they're talking about getting rid of need-blind admissions, which meant they didn't discriminate against you because you were poor, and need-based financial aid, which meant that they would make sure you could afford to go if you got in. And they had plenty of scholarship money to make that happen. They were raising money every year based on that.
Right.
They wanted to scrap it. They wanted to get rid of both of it. The last little tiny tool to get into Yale if you're working class, they wanted to take away. So we formed this whole protest organization. Sam, Sam was always coming up with these crazy things because he's old school lefty. It was called Pay, Poor at Yale, but and we were doing like brochures and pamphlets. We made our organization look huge because we had figured out, and Dave Lionheart, who's now at the New York Times, he was the editor at the Yale Daily News at the time. He loved our little protest movement. He knew what we didn't know, which was all the deans of Yale University had no idea what was going on campus. Right. They relied on the Yale Daily News. So he made our protest organization look huge. And Sam was brilliant at postering everything everywhere. So you would think we were everywhere. There was like 14 of us in the whole organization.
Well, didn't a recent author of Hillbilly Elegy go to that school?
J.D. Vance.
Yeah. I mean, he wrote about similar storylines, if I recall from the book.
Yes. Yes. I mean, the class.
I mean, it's not in the movie. The movie sucks, by the way. The movie blows, but the book is very good.
The movie. Yeah, I wasn't persuaded that it would be good.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
But that's how I got into all the economic issues and class issues at Yale, figured out what affirmative action really was. Mm-hmm. Our protest move, ultimately, I left Yale to make the protest more significant, consequential. And ultimately, Yale changed their policies and a whole Ivy League changed their policies. So it worked in that sense. But I've been eager to see the day affirmative action dies for a long time.
Right.
For that reason. The place affirmative action also needs to die right now is Hollywood. I don't know. Indiana Jones looks like Disney is on pace to lose over $1 billion.
They're NGOs, Robert. These are not public companies. They're NGOs, bro. That's what these things are. They're just affirmative action structures at this point. I don't know where the shareholders are, where the stockholders are, how these losses. I mean, they pulled back Batgirl because somebody in accounting realized it was going to lose $1 trillion. Normally, the rule of thumb is you got to put up 1.5 times the budget for prints and advertising, sometimes twice. So if you got a $100 million movie, you got to put up $200 million, $150 million for prints and advertising, which could, you talk about bad money following bad money. Somebody at Warner Brothers, in this particular case, had convinced somebody to pull this goddamn thing. And this is when the movie was in the can, Robert. I mean, these are testing so badly that I think it's criminal malfeasance to release some of these films.
Well, what's amazing is Kathleen Kennedy keeps putting herself in all these movies. So, she picks a new wave feminist that's not likable, that's always brunette, that's a superhero in like Star Wars, now in Indiana Jones and these other films. And she's just single-handedly destroying
right. When you she's still working. When you eliminate the center, the entire center of the film business, which is teenage white males, as the core, you're left with all these tangential little groups. Try making a movie that's going to weave in, as an audience, I'm saying, all these tentacles of all these little tiny groups. It's in a clusterfuck of impossibility. You know what I mean? Teenage males would go to a movie and maybe take a girl. So that's 2 people. They may have a repeat of 3 to 5 times for a particular movie. You eliminate that to start out with in marketing. That's where we are.
Yeah, I mean, like the original Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones wasn't huge at the box office first week, but I think it made 30 million, 40 million. It went on to make like 800 million at the box office.
Right.
How? Because its word of mouth was one of the greatest ever. And people would go see in the movie. And anybody, anybody from the age of 5 to 35 could go and have a thrill ride with it. I mean, it was brilliant at its age.
Well, they've attempted everything to stop word of mouth. I mean, they have created, I remember one time in Connecticut, I don't know if it was the Connecticut Times Current or some Connecticut paper, Fox created a phony movie critic. And one day everybody said, who is Jeff Smith? Well, I forgot the guy's name. He didn't exist. They were writing film critique and getting it through a corrupt editor at the newspaper. It was being written at the studio, Robert, and then put into the print version of the paper. And finally people said, who is this guy? How's he getting all these bylines? And of course they were, 5-star film for everything that Fox produced. They have, and then produced phony commercials where there were talking heads that came out of a theater like they were audience, all actors. There's a long history, the control of Amazon ratings, the control of Rotten Tomatoes, which I think is owned by Paramount. Long history, but now the movies are so bad that they can't even cut off the damage fast enough, Robert.
Yeah, I mean, the old school guys have got to cut bait. I mean, Hollywood was always better when John Milius was running around. I mean, that guy was as fun as the Dickens. I mean, a little bit crazy, but crazy in a good, fun way.
Right.
But you see, I mean, they've taken George Lucas and Steven Spielberg's creations and destroyed them in short order. And to the loss of because this is just the billions they've lost at the box office.
No, good luck with their affirmative action hires coming up with Star Wars. I mean, good luck with that.
All of it.
Good luck with all of that.
Their lost opportunity cost is even billions more.
Right.
Because these are brands that should have been building merch, that should have been wanting to go to the Disney resort. All that. I mean, it's been the biggest economic malpractice, this wokeism has been. And I think the other thing they don't realize, the logic of the Supreme Court's decision means affirmative action should be dead everywhere.
Everywhere.
Dead in contract.
Well, they have boxed themselves into a thing here with the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences is now.
Well, yeah. How isn't that illegal?
Well, that's why you might have said something here that's so relevant, because with 1/3 of the crew, 1/3, not 10 people, Robert, you may have 100-person crew. You've got to find 30 dispossessed people with no arms or dark skin, with missing or blind, who are deaf. You've got to spread it out, and it can't be a bunch of background extras. This has to be crew and talent in front of the camera, in back of the camera, to qualify for the awards. Qualify.
And that's going to invite all kinds of grifters.
Okay, let me just address this, once and for all, because I'll tell you what this is about. They want to stop the creation of these films in the womb. They do not want films like Gladiator or historic biopics. They want to funnel it into contemporary urban dramas. And that is the easiest, softer way that I'm afraid most producers faced with this dilemma to raise money, where you're already coming out of the gate where the money people are saying, why should I invest in Gladiator 2, The Reckoning, with your director who is British, when there's not a chance in hell of winning any awards? That's the goal of the Academy, not to employ 33 people on a shoot. They've got much bigger Marxist goals here, Robert. And it started with Michelle Obama and the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science picking a black secretary who they thought was safe to be the president, until she got a call from a woman from Chicago.
Well, I mean, yeah, it'll be interesting to see the cultural, social, political, economic fallout of the affirmative action decision. I mean, there's other good decisions on protecting religious expression. You don't have to make a website you don't want. You don't have to.
Right. Yeah. What else was in there? You got the Christian one. You've got affirmative action.
Because the two religious ones, one was not having to make a website for someone whose ideology opposes your religion. Right. But you also, Jewish people don't have to make Nazi sites now. But you also
what a relief! Well, I couldn't take it anymore.
But also the other big religious ruling, unanimous ruling, it was big in the vaccine mandate context.
Right.
So they said that a company has to prove that it's an unfair, unjust substantial economic burden to make any accommodation. They have to make a risk reward analysis of each accommodation that's available rather than to discriminate against someone based on religion. And that was the big holdup for all the vaccine mandate cases, because there was some prior case law that suggested the company could just show it's annoying to their other employees or annoying to their customers or their vendors. The Supreme Court said, no, that can't even count at all.
Right. Will there be a tumbling dice effect now on these vaccine cases, Robert?
Well, if the employers are smart, they start writing checks and getting out. Otherwise, those checks are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger on legal fee side just alone. Right. So it was a huge win effectively for vaccine mandate cases, huge win for religious rights in the employment context, huge win for religious rights against mandates like the Colorado one, along with the big strike of affirmative action. But the biggest sort of, and then there's a range of other cases we'll talk about on Sunday, Viva and I. But the other, but the biggest one, I mean, there's the Biden student loan case.
Right. Yeah.
Being missed there. I mean, the Supreme Court said Biden, of course, didn't have the power to do that. Secretary of Education can't use the COVID as an excuse to just write off $500 million in debt, or $500 billion, I think it may have been, whatever ridiculous amount it was. And but the interesting thing there is one of the things that people have not followed as much in the political circles is that Trump's big surge is amongst your Friday night tight geeks and gamers fan types. It's working class millennials and Zoomers. Like, to give an example, millennials in 2008 voted for Obama by a 35-point margin. They were 20-plus point Democratic, one of the most Democratic generations ever since the 1972 McGovern Democratic vote. I mean, in that sense. And even more Democratic than the average, than that voter group was. That gives an idea of, it was the most Democratic generation ever. And Democrats were banking on it always staying that way.
Right.
The working class component of it is disproportionately African-American, Mexican-American, Puerto Rican, and to some degree female compared to past working class generations. That group has moved so harshly against Biden and almost exclusively toward Trump, not towards DeSantis, not towards other Republicans, that now millennials split their votes evenly. It's a Democrats have no edge, which means they're DOA unless that reverses radically.
Wow.
And you look at now, that same group is the group that won't have student loan relief, that was living off of STEMI checks and service economy money that was built on their co-generational folks being able to have extra money, not having to pay student loan debt. And now all of a sudden they got to start paying back that student loan debt after they've already had to, if they were renting, had to pay back more rent debt that they had a moratorium on. You combine all that, they're going to be really squeezed economically during a time period where we're probably going to take a big hit economically.
And you can't go bankrupt on your student loan, right, Robert?
Nope. Thanks to who? President Joe Biden when he was in the United States Senate.
No,
Joe Biden was the number one advocate
because of Delaware,
credit card and student loan companies.
Because he's owned in Delaware, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, because of their law student people that I knew. Yeah, their MO was to go borrow as much as they could all the way through the end of law school.
Right.
As soon as they graduated law school,
right? Oh, sure.
Out.
Yeah.
You know, it was a smart move.
Right.
It always hurts your credit rating forever, but they were worth it to the trade-off. So, but yes, it's because Joe Biden was such an advocate for credit card companies, banks, and financial entities, and student loan and student loan creditors that he is the one who pushed through the laws that made it so harder to get out of all of, and not only that, credit card debt. Like right now, credit card debt's the highest it's ever been in American history. Right. It's at a 20% interest rate and rising, highest rate it's been in 30 plus years. Who's disproportionately bearing that debt? Millennial and Zoomer working class kids who were living off of STEMI checks and not having to pay their rent and student loans. Right. Now they have no more STEMI checks, no more rent moratoriums, no more student loan moratoriums. Their credit card debt's through the roof. And thanks to President Joe Biden, when he was Senator Joe Biden, they can't bankrupt out of any of it.
Well, is the affirmative action reversal by the Supreme Court going to be a Democratic red flag that they're going to wave like a banner, like they did Roe v. Wade in the last election? Huffing and puffing with packing the Supreme Court and blah, blah, blah.
A huge shock to the professional class, a huge shock to the academy and the universities, huge shock to the human resource folks. Yep. The problem they have It's the reason why that working class millennial Zoomer group is so heavily swinging towards Trump. Is affirmative action never benefited that group. That group has never profited from it. They were promised it would benefit them, and then they never got it. And so the problem they have is the class of people who were enriched and empowered by it, or already lifelong loyal Democrats who vote Democrat all the time anyway. They now no longer have the means to guarantee employment to their compadres. The whole Democratic political machine is based on this now.
Of course.
You get a token person. Your Hunter Biden is behind the scene. You get a token minority, like out of South Park, to be your representative, so you can get some government contracts, so you can get some sweet employment gigs, so you can get something else. You take away affirmative action, the Democratic political machine collapses across the entire country, and now it's under massive legal risk. So the problem they have is it won't lead to much political blowback amongst the key swing constituencies because they haven't profited from it, but it will lead to blowback in their ability to sustain their own political machine and payroll for their pals and compadres.
Now, where are we with the Hunter Biden squeezing him criminally, and the tax thing? Obviously, you pointed out was one of the craziest deals of all time, as you eloquently pointed out from your experience as a tax attorney. Where are we with the other charges, Robert? The gun was obviously pushed aside, but now I understand there's other stuff coming at him.
We'll see. The net effect of it is right now he's got the sweetheart deal of all sweetheart deals. We have to see the plea deal to see whether it let him out of everything.
Right.
So the plea deal could have been structured to only let him out of limited number of things. Could have been structured to let him out of everything.
Is it possible he was blackmailing his own father?
I've always thought that it was more of a cry out effect.
Right.
That, you look at if you're his sister, do you really accidentally leave a diary exposing your father behind while he's running for president?
Right.
You know what I mean? If you're Hunter, do you really forget about your laptop being at the local?
Right. No, I understand that. I agree with you on that. But now at this level, when he calls his father 4 months ago and says, "Dad, this can't be possibly happening to me, can it, Dad? What are my options here, Dad?"
There's no question they were squeezing Hunter to get to Joe.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
And the whole goal was they knew that Hunter was the vulnerability to get to Joe and to get to his brother, to get to his sister.
Isn't that the whistleblower who has come out? I mean, was he the squeezer?
I think a range of people were potential squeezers.
Okay.
And so Joe basically made it clear to the key people, because his appointees had to sign off on this deal for this deal to even happen.
Right.
The Assistant Attorney General of Tax, the Lisa Monaco, the Assistant Deputy Attorney General overall. And I think he put out the word that he wanted this shut down. Right. And I still think in order to get everybody out, he'll probably ultimately need to do a mass pardon of the whole Biden family. And I think that's his last card to pull, and he will pull it, but I don't think it'll be until after the election.
All right, let me ask you this. New Hampshire comes, like LBJ, he does extremely poorly in New Hampshire. Extremely poorly in New Hampshire. Can he step aside and let Gavin Newsom step in at that time?
Well, who's blocking Gavin Newsom?
You're saying Michelle.
No, Kamala.
Right, but can Kamala remain in that VP slot with Newsom stepping in to fill the shoes? I mean, my question to you is, and I raised this last week, why the fuck is Newsom going 24/7 on a campaign when there's no road, no avenue for him to get the Democratic nomination? RFK is doing it for political reasons, issue reasons, in my humble opinion, and righteous reasons. What is Newsom's goal? What is Newsom doing? He's spending money. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. He definitely wants it.
Yeah.
The problem is Kamala Harris will never let him get anywhere near it. And that's his problem. Until they take out Kamala Harris, she's not giving up the presidency. She thinks it's hers. She thinks it's coming to be hers.
Okay. All right.
And I think Biden, it's like Agnew. The moment Harris is somehow taken out is the moment Biden knows he's going to be taken out. Until Harris is Biden's insurance. And it's what's blocking Newsom. It's what's blocking booty gay.
Well, what is Newsom's logic of getting around Kamala Harris? He's not a psycho. He's not stupid, Robert, politically.
It's an old Bay Area conflict. So he comes from one side of the Bay Area political power structure. She comes from the other.
Right.
Through Willie Brown.
Right.
And so there's that hostility
He's
goes
not,
back.
I understand the hostility, but he's never going to submit to being her vice president.
Oh, no. I mean,
Right.
he
Okay.
thinks he's
All right.
the president. He thinks he's the logical choice. Kinda like
Absolutely. Absolutely.
the problem is he's got absolutely no path until and
Hmm.
unless Kamala Harris gets out of the way, and she ain't.
Okay. All right. I agree with you, because
hurdle.
that Democratic black woman base is what's driving that crazy train over there.
And she is ruthless. I mean, they've tried everything to kind of nudge her away. She will not budge. They will have to take her out the Ron Brown special trip to Europe way before she'll go away.
Well,
And
I heard
Newsom doesn't have that much pull.
She cashed in her frequent flyer miles, and she's not using them now. She said that's okay.
Now
Let me ask you this on the same type of questioning. What is RFK Jr.'s path to victory, in your humble opinion?
1968. That Biden
exactly. Okay. Now, Biden's got to die, leave, or
by the way, is the other hurdle for Newsom and the Democratic Party.
Right.
The other reason they don't want to step away from Biden is they don't want to give Robert Kennedy Jr. a path to the nomination.
Right, but what if he can't function? He's now sleeping in an iron lung, from what I read, at night. He walked away from an MSNBC interview. He thought it was over, just started exiting stage left like something out of a Marx Brothers movie. I mean, what if he's physically at some point, it's got to end, Robert.
You would think so, but I think what he's gambling on is he's the Kamala Harris insurance he has, and Robert Kennedy is a bigger threat to the deep state.
Right.
And so that combination is such that their hands are really tied. Because remember, Nixon's great mistake was letting Agnew be taken out.
Absolutely.
If Agnew hadn't been taken out, they never impeached Nixon.
Does Robert Kennedy pick Dennis Kucinich as his VP? I'm asking you here for the first time.
I think you would pick Tulsi Gabbard. He said,
okay, interesting. Okay.
That would be a good choice.
So let's just hypothetically say New Hampshire does not get moved to from first primary to South Carolina, which is obviously a bold move by Biden, but I don't know why they can't pull it off. But let's say New Hampshire is the first, and Biden loses. Let's say Biden loses, write-in vote. I don't know how, some scenario where it's close. I mean, how does RFK Jr. A, get delegates, B, get super delegates, or C, get into the actual building in Chicago in July of 2024, Robert?
He's got to amass major momentum.
Right. Okay. All right.
All right. I got to hop off. Got to do a.
Welcome. Robert, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Today.
This was great fun. And remember, you can keep super chatting for Eric Hunley's bail fund. Who probably need it.
It's going to be a lot of money because they're going to throw the book at him. Thanks, Robert.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right. That was good.
That was fun. I mean, I hope people at home appreciate it. This guy chose us on the biggest day of the year, Supreme Court Christmas Day, to come on this channel. It's shocking that he keeps coming on here at all. I mean, I'm so happy that he does it. I mean, it's kind of shocking. But anyway, that was great.
Yeah, and while you were talking, though, people are throwing in a lot of support and everything. I want to start with a couple Rumble rants. Livestream Universe sent $10 for the Hunley Defense Fund. Thank you very much.
Oh, my.
But then we have Gumbasto.
Gumbasto
came in hot at $200.
Whoa, what's Gumbasto? I love this guy.
Great.
Do we see the chats, or that you don't see them anymore?
I can't pull those on the screen, the Rumble rants, and I can't pull the tips on the screen.
Okay.
Because they don't incorporate. I will put the super chats on, but I wanted to immediately. That is a giant Rumble rant, and we definitely appreciate it.
It's one of the Rumble Rant Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, I think, is where they keep the Hall of Fame.
I think so. That is a huge deal. We've got a bunch of locals tips that are coming in. Ale House Woohoo with Bobby. Oh, that's right. I guess you can't do Come On Bobby with Barnes, but let me see. Ale House did Professor Tom. Okay, cute. Professor Tom's one of my favorite smartasses on locals. I've been in touch with Ziggy Shrugs. She says she was working on going to make some prison bitch Erics to raise funds for your pending bail.
That's funny.
Yeah. Alehouse 20. Hello, Bobby. Before the SCOTUS news, any comment on the Twitterverse blocking all but members only? Starting today, same as Globalist CEO without being open to all eyeballs, cut off its value. Does it not? Okay. I'll talk about that real quickly.
I don't know what that is.
What they've done is they've made it. You used to be able to go into incognito and look at somebody's timeline and just see what they're tweeting.
You're talking about Twitter now.
Yeah.
Okay.
They've changed it now to where you can't look at a timeline unless you log in with an account.
Good. I'd still be in Sirhan's good graces if I didn't have that.
Well, I'm actually okay with it because it's I think it's not against people looking. I think it's against Google scraping.
Ah, I see what you're saying. Right.
So
right.
I think it's a way of they're saying, no, if you're going to look, you're going to be on Twitter.
Okay.
Now, people
I'm
build
good
a
with
lot
that.
of burner accounts, and there are other tools that have an API that can also look if you want to look up an account who blocked you. So I know people would be disappointed because they're like, hey, we're looking up Lord Buckley with the incognito mode because he blocked us, and now we can't see what the hell he's saying. But
all right,
it is what it is.
Right.
Let me see. Let me go through some super chats, and then I'll jump back and see we can bring these up. Come on, folks. These are super chats.
Oh, okay.
I'm not your buddy guy. Love what you guys do. Keep up the good work. Also, I must say I truly appreciate your videos on the intel agencies. Cheers. Thank you.
Interesting.
I was going to say our CIA trilogy, but it's now, what do you call 4? It's not quadrilogy, is it? It's
quadruple or something. I don't know. Quartet. A quartet.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
It's a quartet.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a trio quartet. Yeah.
Cool. Monty McCord, Mark, I sent a photo of the Miltier Mansion to your Twitter.
Okay.
So look out for that. Kimberly Sue Cassidy, $10. Thank you. Rags Yule, bail money for Eric. Well, thank you very much. Hope it doesn't come to that, folks. William Donnelly, $20 super sticker. Thank you. Bill Maher couldn't believe names. Yeah. Now you were talking about that though, because somebody sent that over. What was the source of Bobby Kennedy's bit?
What do you mean by bit? When he was in prison in Puerto Rico, or
no? Oh, sorry. He was talking about his father and what went down.
Oh, the thing with Bill Maher, that's a reference to him on the island of Puerto Rico. The Navy was shooting uranium tipped shells on the far end of the island for many years. And he went to jail for, I think 30 or 60, 90 days. I'm not sure. And all different people were in there. Al Sharpton, him. He did like 3 months in a Puerto Rican jail over this protest. There was a protest on the island to stop our Navy from shelling the Puerto Rican beach on the other side of the island. So I think that's what that was referring to. But there's also a segment of Bill Maher interviewing RFK Jr. about the Sirhan case, which was almost directly beat for beat out of my research, which was fun for me to listen to, with Paul Schrade and myself and RFK Jr. explaining, myself and Paul Schrade not being there, to Bill Maher the exact details of the shooting. And Bill Maher was, to put it bluntly, stunned how open and shut this case is of Thane Eugene Caesar and not Sirhan killing RFK Jr.'s father.
Yeah, which had to be completely frustrating. By the way, Puerto Rico, we covered the Navy shelling a little bit in Puerto Rico episode, didn't we?
Yep.
So people might want to check that out. There's a reason that Puerto Rico has been pissed off at us.
Yeah.
All right. Amazing Blumpkin. You can't make this stuff up.
You can't. I mean, you could try, but now they've got AI doing it instead of writers, so it might be easier.
All right. Colonel Reb, put this towards Hunley's bail. Thank you. Jack Smith filing January 6th charges against Trump. Robert, any preliminary thoughts? Didn't see this earlier, but I'm sure they'll talk about that on Sunday.
Well, I just want to mention Nigel Farage, who's the British Trump, who has had his bank accounts seized with no explanation by the UK, and they're forcing him out of his own country. This is the Trump of the United Kingdom.
He's behind Brexit.
And a very, very populist British politician over there, being squeezed by the deep state of the UK through his seizure of his banking money and blocking him in banking there. So he may have to leave the UK. A very interesting development by Farage today and yesterday.
Yeah, I know. And folks, Farage is very important because he and Brexit occurred before Trump. It almost was like the wave coming over. Really, really important guy in that regard. It's pretty sick. Entry required with, I think, a Swedish kroner, 50.
I'll take a kroner like that. I didn't get a chance to talk to Robert about it, but there were before the show, we talked about this channel, News Nation, that had RFK Jr. on for a town hall the other night, which I watched on TV, and he was taking on all questioners. And one of them was a medical doctor who asked him about the vaccine, and he schooled this medical doctor to where he made such a schmuck out of this guy that it's now up on Twitter. If you want to take a look at this from News Nation, just the little segment of RFK Jr. talking about the history of vaccines with this medical doctor. He taught him some science.
Okay. All right. So the next 5 in a row are from Helena Oleshnik, who's coming in like, I forgot the name of that other person, but $2 from Helena. $2 from Helena. $2 from Helena.
Like a broken record with this.
$2, Helena. $2 from Helena.
You should ask a question, Olenjek. Get a question in there. That'll cost you $10. Oleshnik. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to say that.
Yeah.
Viva's ancient Hebrew ancestors were constantly asking Methuselah how old he was.
Oh, that's very funny. That's very good. Very good.
Oh, man.
Fellow royalty, Sir Lawrence, one of my cousins. Harvard said, what is that?
Harvard said they are going to ignore the SCOTUS ruling based on carve-out by Roberts that said life experience can be considered.
Good. So they'll be sued by the Asians again, who have massive life experience, and they'll have to define what life experience is. I mean, washing a car for a high school fundraiser is different than becoming a classical piano player.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, well,
for life experience. Yeah.
Well, they're completely full of shit. Anyway, Asian is almost like saying bipedal. I never attached anything derogatory in saying Oriental. Yeah, I get that, because we used to say Oriental meaning China.
The opposite
Korea.
of Occidental, though, also is the opposite of Occidental.
Right, but it became Asian.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the political correctness. But Asian, if you go to England, you say Asian, they think you're talking about Pakistanis.
Right. And
Indians,
yeah.
So, I mean, Asian's a huge continent. So saying Orient is not necessarily a slanderous thing. It's just a part of the world. So I don't know why they've done that, but it's crazy.
Hold on. Keep going with this. I'll be right back.
Sure. All right. Cameron Pasha and Doomcock have been getting leaks out of their Disney insiders that Kathy Kennedy has been suspended. Email address has been deactivated. Spielberg humiliated her by not mentioning her at the premiere. That would be amazing, Jonathan. I don't know. Because it seems like Kathleen Kennedy has been advertised as she's out, she's finally done. This director's pissed off at her, or that director's pissed off at her. She's finally over, and she keeps turning up over and over and over. And I don't know. She's like a bad penny. I can't seem to get rid of that creature.
Which creature?
Kathy Kennedy. Somebody's saying that sources are leaking that her email's been locked down and she's no longer there. But I've heard a lot of times that Kathleen Kennedy's gone. But the
producer, Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just say something. She has the rights to all these pictures because she's the original producer. I don't even know if she worked on any of them. She, in other words, as a producer of the first of any of these films she works on, she's going to get the fee and the credit whether she worked on these films or not. So I don't know how much input she's got into any of these recent films that she's got screen credit for.
I don't know she worked at Disney, was in charge of the whole damn department. So pretty big input.
I don't know where her career is right now, but I'm saying just in terms of credits and influence on films, if you're one of the original producers, you're going to get it through, all of them.
Yeah. All right, make it a locals for a minute. Professor Tom, Mark, what are your top 3 tips for surviving prison? Asking for a friend.
Oh, that's funny. Well, bring in 120 hits of LSD, meet them down at the shower, get a novel, get every possible threat person high as a kite, and then enjoy the 3 meals that they make you per day.
They're on a roll. Professor Tom again, we need some free Hunley t-shirts. Sugar Fry, send a $10 tip. Great show. Thank you. God, Don't Sue Me said Eric should say he heard a rumor that Alec was also plinking. After that, he would never hear from the prosecutor again.
Oh, that's funny.
Maybe.
That's funny. That's funny.
I should check into that. Maybe I'll say I'm a protected class.
Protected class, yeah.
Dr. Bentonville, is Mark having audio problems? He's dropping out. Not that I know of.
Sounds clear to me.
Yes.
Super clear.
Professor Tom again. Oh my God. Free Hunley merch is available, and there's a link to. Oh my God! Somebody actually designed a T-shirt. Maybe
is that like a meme on a shirt, or?
Well, you can design. Okay, somebody put together a. Thank you very much for the pink T-shirt as the default.
Oh,
very funny.
I get it.
Joe Arpaio. Yeah.
Joe Arpaio. Oh.
We have our own little psychos in our locals.
You know, Joe Arpaio used to have this Scared Straight program where these kids from the local schools, Eric, would come in for a long weekend as prisoners. I don't know if you remember that. I was trying to get it made into a reality show, but people were too spooked by it.
I believe it.
Yeah, they had to live dressed in their underwear like the prisoners had to.
Right. Well, I know Sean Atwood, who I've been on his show multiple times. Another guy, not a fan of Joe Arpaio. He actually served time in the Arizona prison.
Right. Well, they're, just so you know, at home, they're in outdoor tents in the broiling desert.
Yes. And they all wear pink.
Pink underwear. Yeah.
Yep. It's Arpaio himself.
It's tough love. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's not well loved, but he almost served time himself, but Trump pardoned him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's okay. Heather, whatever, $9.99. Thank you very much. Star Wars has a heartbeat. Lucasfilm will likely be sold back to George Lucas or potentially a Saudi businessman.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't followed this lately as to what the status is of these companies, but
I don't know. It's been garbage for so long that I just don't care. It's like there's a certain point that I'm like, well, how much abuse does one have to take watching this?
It's weird because like Barbara Broccoli, who controls the James Bond series, controls it with an iron fist. I'm not so sure that the Kathleen Kennedy does the same thing in terms of Lucasfilms any longer. I don't know her status there.
Well, I wish there was a Broccoli who watched Star Wars, because Bond is pretty much a quality project.
Because of the Broccoli family. Yeah.
It's gotten better.
Absolutely.
And then now lately it's been really good.
Yeah. By the way, Mission Impossible is coming out. There seems to be only one star in Hollywood. It's either he's doing Top Gun or Mission Impossible, supporting the entire rest of the industry. I mean, it's crazy that Tom Cruise is Hollywood at this point. There are no other Cruises. You know, Harrison Ford is like 80. I mean, I think they did him with CGI effects to crank out this last version, of that film series. But between Top Gun and Mission Impossible, wow, it's going to support all the other failures.
Tom Cruise is a mixed bag, because I mean, it's like, yes, he's the Scientologist in chief, but I've never heard a bad word about the guy. I mean, honestly,
let me put it this way. Let me put it this way. Tell me a Tom Cruise bomb, and I'll take my answer off the air. Tell me a movie that Tom Cruise was in that was a bomb.
I don't know many.
Okay.
Some that did maybe not as well as
expected. No. I'm
talking
about unmitigated bomb. What a bomb is. Tell me the Tom Cruise movie that's a bomb. And you could say Cocktail, but even Cocktail makes
that was a hit.
Money. Yeah,
that was a hit at the time.
Right. You could say the auto racing movie, but that was a hit at the time.
No, well, it was Paul Newman. No. That was a big movie.
Color of Money, which was a Scorsese film. Remake of another film with Jackie Gleason. But
the best I've ever seen Tom Cruise, though, is Tropic Thunder.
Oh, well, I don't know, but the best. I mean, it's a comedy turn.
No, but his cameo was phenomenal. I really was like,
Eric,
no, I didn't recognize him.
When he's doing Mission Impossible movies, I mean, these are mega projects.
Oh,
I mean, mega. You know, it's probably fun for him to just go in and do that thing he did on Tropic Thunder, you know.
No, but what I'm saying is that showed real talent. Like,
he's got real talent, for Christ's sake.
I know, but people don't.
I mean, who disputes Tom Cruise's talent at this point? Jesus.
Anyway,
what does this guy have to prove?
He is a megastar. He is a superstar.
Wait, could we get to the Groubert anti-theft device before the show?
Oh my God.
I forgot about this.
It's the most important thing to Mark ever.
Because I've been saying this for 2 years.
He's been harping. Okay, here you go. Mark, have your moment in the sunshine.
Okay, well, I just want to point this out because we covered the liquor store in Australia where the woman simply pushed a button and locked the glass doors and the guy couldn't get out last week. But this is a Safeway supermarket up in Northern California that has now put in all kinds of bars and locked gates to prevent the nonstop robbery of the stores. And they're having an enormous amount of success. It was the reason I wanted to not crow about me talking about this for a year and a half.
A little bit.
But to show that this is doable. I mean, the people were torturing me online saying, they're just going to kill everyone. Is that what you want? They're going to shoot it up
here. They have them here. We got a Swami Mart down the road. They do it at a Walmart here in Hampton. Oh, right. But we don't have the same problem.
Every single franchise has left the city of San Francisco instead of doing this, which Safeway did up in Sonoma County to prevent the wholesale thievery of their products in the store. It was so simple that I just wouldn't shut up about it because it was such a simple idea, and none of these stores will do it. You know, the Bed Bath & Beyond won't do it. The CVS's won't do it. Finally, it took Safeway to actually install these locked gates to prevent anyone from going out unless the gates are opened. I mean, how complicated was this? Anyway, I just wanted to get that out there.
Okay.
No big.
No, Mark. I could tell you, Mark has texted me, hey, don't forget about this article.
Because I forgot.
And then I'm on the phone, and he's like,
I forgot.
Hey, don't forget my article. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Let me go look for it. And he's like, oh, I'll get it to you. I still found it. But yeah,
you also sent me an article about benzodiazepine leading to suicide, which was less humorous.
Except we didn't say that word. But anyway.
Well, it's a medical term in this case. The benzos have side effects. Let me put it that way. This new study that came out leads to you becoming unalived after abusing benzos for a while, and really comes down to the fact that getting off of benzodiazepine addiction is the most difficult addiction to get off of. You need to be hospitalized, and you need to be sedated, and you need to be in a facility for 7 to 10 days to
ask Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, to ask Jordan Peterson, ask millions of others who didn't even attempt it, and eventually unalive themselves is where I think this story is going, because of the fact that it's physically impossible to kick by yourself. Unlike other drugs, unlike other substances that you could kick at home, benzos you can't, because you'll go into convulsions and you'll have seizures, and you will eventually die if not treated properly on how to kick benzos. So
Peterson said, no, I was gonna say, I think Peterson said it was like bugs crawling up his skin, and I mean, it was like a nightmare, and it went on and on and on and on for a while.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to kick on your own. And it involves, paying out of pocket. There's financial problems with kicking in a facility too. So it's mostly a female thing. It's probably an 8 to 10 to 1 ratio of females to males. It's the women love pills. They fit into their pocketbook. They will get a divorce, and some guy will write a script for them. These benzos are designed for short-term usage, and all of a sudden it's 3 years that you're on Xanax. And people who are hearing this, who know what I'm talking about. They're designed for very short-term use. They're highly addictive, and the people prescribing them should be brought up on international charges in The Hague, the medical personnel for prescribing these. And now if you go to the street, they're going to be phony Xanax, and they're going to be made of fentanyl. And that is a Russian roulette situation waiting to go bad, because they're now making bootleg Xanax that are 100% fentanyl. So,
yeah, and then you have Trank that's mixed in too, and everything else. Rumble Rants. Seymour SR gave us $5 for the Book or Bail Fund. So it's variety now.
There you can read the books in jail. You can get the book and read them in prison.
Mark has a PayPal for books. I have a PayPal for just in case.
He has a jail pal. It's a new link just for people going to prison for undue causes.
And then Gumbasto sent a $50 Rumble Rant saying Gumbasto is Ron Pinta.
Who's Ron Pinta? Oh, him. He's Ron Pinta.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I got you. Okay. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Ron Gumbasto Pinta.
Well, that being said, we're going to take a brief break here for the guy named Big Bill. Now you say to yourself, who's Big Bill? I never heard of Big Bill. Well, Big Bill is actually Big Bill Brunzi, which people do know the name of. And he played the violin in the vicinity of Little Rock, Arkansas, before moving to Chicago. He was born in 1896, where he took up guitar in the early 1920s, recorded in 1927, became a hit maker. During the next, Big Bill Brunzi is huge. He was one of the few popular bluesmen associated with a sound rather than a signature song. And his facile touch combined with a strong dance beat gave him the credentials as both a city and country bluesman. And that's Big Bill Brunzi, today's hero of the blues, who is a big star, by the way. A lot of these guys came out of the Mississippi Delta. And the explanation I've heard from ethnomusicologists is because of the noise, the cacophony of sound in Chicago, they went electric to overcome the sound of buses and traffic, because you couldn't. That's where the electric blues comes from, out of Chicago, and usually 1940s, 1950s, starting in the 1930s. But they go with electric sounds because they can't be heard on the street. And they would run a cord into a building or run a cord into a store and play on the street electrically. And when they were in the Mississippi Delta, of course, you could sit on your porch or go outside of a store and play acoustically. You couldn't do that in a modern city like Chicago, hence the birth of the electric blues for people, which will then lead to, Paul Butterfield and Mike Bloomfield and the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, and then eventually to rock and roll.
Because of a busted amplifier, I think, that caused a flapping.
Well, that was Dave Davies of the Kinks doing that, stabbing a pencil into a Dave Davies, and you really got me. This is a sidetrack thing, but he jammed a pencil into a Fender amp and got distortion, which later became a type of guitar playing. But that was invented by Dave Davies. Of the Kinks, the brother of Ray Davies. But the Chicago electric blues sound becomes the sound of Eric Clapton and the Yardbirds and everything that went electric in England. Eventually, also the Rolling Stones, and
Jimmy
then
Page, big time.
Jimmy Page and all that stuff. That's where that came from, out of Chicago, and that's why the Stones loved Muddy Waters, and that's why they worshipped all those guys, the electric guys mostly, but some acoustic guys too.
And by the way, to the Stones' credit, they not only worshipped him, they gave back. Stones exposed, I think, more blues artists, or brought them out. So they didn't. Jimmy Page has been criticized, I think, possibly fairly, of just kind of taking it and using it, whereas the Stones were like, "Oh yeah, we're doing it because of this band and these are great, and you got to check them out." And
they played with them too. They backed up Muddy Waters in a small club in Chicago one time, I think, and they also gave Tina Turner the full stage, on tour for a number of years.
Well, yeah, somebody said, or I've read that Mick Jagger learned his moves from Tina Turner.
That's what I meant to tell you. The woman who just gave birth to Al Pacino's child previously dated Mick Jagger.
Oh, okay.
And Clint Eastwood.
All right. Wow.
I just remember the Mick Jagger one. I forgot about that.
Wow. Okay. Some more tips, and I'll get back to super chats. JJC Noel said $10 tip. Bush money behind DeSantis and against Trump. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me see. Don't sue me. Are Mark or Robert following what's going on in France?
I just saw that this morning. It was over some shooting or something. I'm not sure I don't really know any details. I just know it was about a shooting and led to tens of thousands of cops being called out, 40,000 police or something.
Yeah, they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to finish it off. They were saying La vie des Algériens compte, something like that. And I don't know if that's a political movement.
It translates to dead Algerian, I think.
Could be.
Yeah.
Professor Tom's asking the big question. What are the Labor Day Montgomery, Alabama plans? I need to book my hotel. We don't know.
We don't have them yet. It's only June. We're still in June, right?
We are. I mean, we're trying. We will.
July, August, September. Okay.
It's getting close, but especially if people fly. Professor Tom, it could have been worse. You could have been roomed with Robert Moses's kin at Bard.
That I don't know about.
All right. Don't sue me. The videos released this week of Muslims and Hispanic Catholics protesting grade school shooting. Is that something?
I don't know. I just saw the protest by the Muslims in Michigan against the trans flag flying on the city government building. This eloquent guy who was Lebanese American stood up, not very well educated, but he said, I left Lebanon to come here. There's no Lebanese flag flying in this city hall, and I don't want a pride flag flying here either. And he went into this eloquent statement. He said, I only want to see one flag. That's why I came here. I'm paraphrasing, but a great speech in the city hall of this Michigan town. It was being touted as an all-Muslim city council by the Democratic left a few years ago. And now they're distancing themselves from this all-Muslim city council in this town.
Yeah, that could be an issue.
Yeah.
Wolf Behringer, are you familiar with, or do you have thoughts about Daniel Hopsicker's 9/11 hijackers investigation? Hopsicker followed the trail of the assassins in Venice, Florida, where the hijackers trained, just like Garrison investigated Oswald's trail in New Orleans. Hopsicker's compelling work has been universally ignored. Okay.
Does he have the 28 pages of the 9/11 Commission study? I mean, that's the only reason I would listen, because in those 28 pages, it explains how Prince Bandar paid for the whole thing, and the money came out of Saudi Arabia from the royal family. What more do I need to know? I mean, those 28 pages that are down in that skiff, which is the document is owned by the American people. The fact that that is not released is only because it explicitly fingers the royal family for funding the entire operation. Where obviously they trained in different places, but it was funded by the royals, for Christ's sake, and Prince Bandar. I don't think that's a mystery any longer. No,
it's pretty much accepted.
Yeah.
WWRR55 sent a tip for Hunley's bail fund. You guys are cracking me up. Thank you. JJC Noel sent $10 for Hunley legal aid. Grammykins sent a $11 tip. Just got here. Bail?
What is this?
Professor Tom's asking about an email he sent about a potential topic for the legal panel show. Professor Tom, I'll remind me on the grill stream. I think it's something about computer disposal, and I didn't get deep into it. You can ask there too. I can maybe talk about it. Ricardo Pelota sent a $5 tip. Rational LA, go figure.
Well, it's a little bit north, actually, but if it came here, well, like I said to Eric before the show, we have a supermarket here called John's, a small supermarket chain in LA that's been doing this for years, and they don't have any problems with thievery in this particular store.
No,
it's tight. You have to go, as I explained to Eric before the show, you have to go through the cash register line to get out. Everything else is blocked. You come in through double swinging gates that don't go back, and you can't get out without going through the line where the cash register is. They don't have any problem, as far as I know, with robbery.
Well, it's kind of like, well, I hate to say about the riots in LA, is the Koreans had rifles on the roof. Small business owners there, they can't afford to be politically correct. They have to do things like gates, rifles, what have you, and take it seriously.
Well, blow darts. What about like blow darts with poison on them? Just silently with blow darts, Hunley.
Yeah, that'll go well. JJC Noel sent a $5 tip. Are you guys going to be in Dallas or Pittsburgh in November? Probably not.
Probably neither one.
Yeah, there is a conference in Dallas. It's not the one we went to. I'm not familiar with it. I forgot to tell Mark. It seems like a new one or something.
Another one. Well, there have been other conferences, Eric, over the years. It's not there. There have been more than just those two. And who knows? It might be a new group starting a conference just for the 60th.
Right, and they may be like, well, Kappa's not there when they should be there, and we're definitely not going to be in Pittsburgh. I don't see any reason.
Unless the Bucks are in the World Series or playing the Dodgers in the post, I'm not going to Pittsburgh.
All right, Professor Tom knows who Farage is. He was a no agenda favorite for quite some time. Black Bayou. Remember when United Airlines changed their name to Allegiant Air in the early 80s?
I don't remember this. Allegiant or Allegis?
Allegis.
I don't remember that.
What? Oh, it's saying the Asians couldn't pronounce the name and called it Allegis Air. They went back to United.
It was some kind of ethnic joke or something by Johnny Yoon, the Korean comic. Before that, Johnny Yoon was a comic of ethnic Korean oriented jokes.
All right, Jeff SK, thoughts on the Nolan film Oppenheimer?
I haven't seen it yet. I don't know. To me, okay, just a couple of things. Everybody's crowing about this film. I am always suspect about British doing our history. I've said this on this show numerous times. So that being said, also Nolan's World War I picture was a disaster, and I don't mean that in a disaster picture sense. It was not a very well made film, according to me. Kind of boring. So I don't know what he's doing with his Oppenheimer thing. I want to see it. I've got high hopes that it works. The reviews coming out are that it's amazing, but I can't believe anything unless I see it myself. And like I said, I am rather nebulous about having our history depicted by people of other countries. Okay.
Yeah,
we've addressed this before. We've addressed this before.
All right. Steph K sent a $2 tip. Enjoying the show and slipping $2 into your virtual G-string. JJC Noel, Tom Cruise. Let's question his logic with Scientology. Okay. Well,
okay, but who cares? I mean, he doesn't really proselytize and or say anything. I mean, if it was, something he kind of doesn't bring up that much. I mean, Travolta brings it up more than he does. Travolta talks about giving massages on the set that are, because he's got the power of healing through touch as a theta level 12, whatever theta level Travolta's at. Cruise has been aggressive in certain areas when confronted by people, anti-Scientology people, but for the most part, not even as aggressive as Travolta.
No. Yeah, I don't know. Lund picks jail pal for Eric, so it's catching on.
Jail pal, yeah, jail pal.
Professor Tom, Lord Buckley, will you be channeling your inner Jerry Lewis for the free Hunley telethon? Well, who's going to do the tech?
That's
you
right.
See, I'm screwed because there's nobody's going to do the tech.
I can't do it. Yeah.
He'll be like, oh, maybe I'll show up on a show somewhere. Whatever.
Hey, Dean.
Commonwealth man sent $10. Love you guys. Big Bill 767 sent a $7.7 tip.
No, Big Bill. Is that Big Bill Brunzi?
I don't know. Great show today. Then Rogue Thunder sent a $25 tip. Eric, I can't think of anything witty. I can't think of anything witty to say. So here you go, Eric. Thank you. 2 super chats. Michael Spain, read the 237 page or read the 237 page AA decision today.
Affirmative action.
Takeaway: Roberts is a legal genius. Sotomayor and Jackson are the legal intellectual equivalent.
You know
of the
what?
view.
He's right about that. He's right about that. They were eviscerated, both of them mentally retarded. I mean, it's just, I'm not even exaggerating. I mean, Sotomayor said stuff during the vaccine, COVID stuff about dead children. She's now saying the Pulse nightclub was a gay shooting when clearly it's been shown to not have been a gay shooting in Orlando. I don't know what Jackson did, but she couldn't even, when a Senate confirmation hearing came up, she was obviously a retard. So I don't know. I mean, these two are really diminished capacity justices, Eric.
Well, the answer was they just legalized discrimination.
Interesting.
Well, that's your answer.
Yeah, interesting. Is that what she said?
Yeah, one of them. I can't remember, but it was like that. That was the takeaway quote. I once again urge Eric and Mark to invite Cameron Pasha on a Freeform Friday whenever possible. I don't know. I mean, he's a pop culture person who I think worked in Disney or something. I'm not against it. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. He might not be interested. Barnes, did the affirmative action decision have any effect on the application of disparate impact theory?
Barnes, I thought it said affirmative action there. I misread it for a second. I misread that. But Barnes is not here. But when he comes back, I think he went out to have a conference call, and he'll be back in about 6 months.
Anyway, he may well be talking about it on Sunday too.
Right. Oh yeah, check it out on Sunday. Right. I mean, he's gonna go into detail there.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I'm just glad that he came on the show. I mean, for him to come on this show of all shows, I mean, to talk about this on this day, shockingly fabulous for me.
And he ran over too. I was sitting there and I'm like, he's gonna go. He's gonna call. Yeah. So he's very generous. Entry required. During the 70s, I laughed at Sweden from New York City. Now I live in Sweden, and I'm horrified at what's going on in New York City in America.
Well, I'm horrified to watch films like The Verge and Force Majeure by a certain Swedish director that I watched this weekend. So maybe he can explain that director, Aslan, to me when he talks to us in the next Super Chat.
Okay.
I'll
look forward to it. Bob Bennett, $30. Thank you. Love your show. Mark is such a great storyteller, Renaissance man, historian. Eric keeps it all together, and Barnes is spot on.
Yeah, I'll tell you something. When I was a kid, I was thinking about this today. I had this encyclopedia that only went to 1939, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I made a deal with God. I said, God, if you just, I didn't even know what I was talking about. I was like 11 years old. I said, God, and I read about the Renaissance, right? And I said, oh, I want to be a Renaissance man. So at the age of 12, I made a deal with God that if he could make me a Renaissance man, I'd be the happiest adult in American history. And of course, it's been both a curse and a blessing because you're into a lot of things, but you don't specialize in one thing. You just know a little bit about a lot of things as opposed to one thing about a lot of things about one thing, which is how the capitalist culture really works. So here I am on a channel with YouTube partner Eric Hunley is going to go to federal prison in a couple of weeks, and I'll be left to handle.
I'm not that important,
right?
New man, I can't. I don't even warrant that.
Right. So the bully for the Renaissance man. Well, a lot of good it did me.
Oh God, Pasha Moyer, Barnes.
Wait, is this the same guy that they were plugging before? Or was that him with another? Just the guy they're talking about from Disney?
Yes.
Okay.
But no, this is Pasha. This is our Pasha, the Moyle.
Who was the other guy that they just said should come on?
Cameron something or another. I forgot the name.
Okay.
Cameron
Pasha, it said, right? Or
something close to that.
All right.
Barnes is a real treat, gents, but don't forget, so are you both. Thanks. Well, thank you.
Well, Barnes is a friend and he's busy, but I'm just shocked and happily shocked that he came on. That's all.
For sure. Guitar for Dummies, peer tutoring. Any chance of you guys covering the Kent State shooting?
It's been covered, and they're making a movie about it where
with our friend.
Hold on, let me just explain this, Hunley. They're making a film where the school chancellor at Kent State is being played as a liberal and is being played by a liberal named Alec Baldwin. So I'm looking forward to not seeing that movie.
To let Trump and the Republicans go full speed after the presidency in exchange for favors, can the Republican governors of Florida and Georgia pardon Trump now? Well, no.
Pardon for what? For the state crimes?
Yeah, there is no state crime in either state that I know of. So
I
no,
don't know about that. Yeah, that's a weird one.
A New York governor could pardon him for whatever the BS is in New York, but that's about it. Mary Smith Fansu, great show, guys. What a wonderful way to start the weekend. Would love to ask Robert about his thoughts on RFK's reaction to affirmative action decision. I'm very disappointed. That was
what did he say? What did he say?
I actually, let me pull up that tweet because it was kind of a disappointing tweet.
Dude, look, he's never going to be all things to all people. So, you know.
No, I mean, his tweet just kind of, I think, matches his, liberal background and kind of what you'd expect. Hang on.
Oh, he went to Harvard.
Right. And all that good stuff. Here we go. Hold on. All right. Regarding the Supreme Court banning affirmative action in higher education, I know many Americans feel that purely race-based decisions are unfair. However, this feeling misses important context. The effects of racist policies going back centuries are now self-perpetuating. So that's
what? They're self-perpetuating. Well, so it can never be remedied, of course.
But bingo, and that is the line.
Oh, that's a cheap one, bro. Put that on the list of questions to ask him about.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's why I did have that pulled up to share because I found
he was talking about the reason I brought up this News Nation thing was he was talking about his own drug addiction. And so I sent him a copy of my book, Rehab Nation, and I said, I'm willing to be your drug czar. So I emailed him after the show. And I hope he reads the book. I hope he makes me his drug czar. But he was talking about, if anybody gets a chance to see this from News Nation the other night, creating work farms for addicts out in the countryside. This sounds like a utopian answer to this problem, but at least it's an answer where they will be well fed and work and work on their addiction out on these work farms in a rural area all over the country. He's going to put tons of federal money into it. He had a whole big
doesn't
plan.
Sound terrible.
No. But of course, it's in the doing. You know, this particular thing is how you manifest this. This is another a liberal idea that really needs to be, shown the facts and the tidbits to make this program work. Otherwise it could go off the rails like every one of their other harebrained schemes. But he did have a long answer. A woman stood up who was a drug counselor in the audience in the town hall and had asked about his plan to treat drug addiction. So he said that he went, and this is him, not me. He said that he went to 9 meetings a week of him for his own addiction. 9 meetings a week. And I don't know if this is all in the same program. I thought about talking to some people, and I don't know, it may be multiple programs for multiple addictions, because that's a lot of meetings to go when you're having that much time under your belt, as he has publicly stated, in terms of also being recovered as opposed to being in recovery. There's a lot of different things that we'll hopefully get into when we interview him. And so I'm waiting to hear from his publicist.
Yeah, hopefully. Charles Severs with a $20 super sticker. Thank you. Basil Beshkov. Oh, this is Basil. This is the one who did the multiples. Basil, I believe.
Right.
But $50 coming in hot in one shot. Let's go, Brandon.
Was the $2 guy? Was he like the multiple $2 guy?
Yeah, I think so. I think it might have been. If not,
let's go Brandon and Kamala. Like, she doesn't have a code name like Brandon. She's just got Kamala or Kamala.
Oh, there's a lot of code names.
Kamala.
I've heard code names, but we can't say them on YouTube. So.
Okay.
Powwow Prince is upset over removal of affirmative action. She never gets another job.
Oh, he's talking about Elizabeth Warren, the senator from Massachusetts. It took me a minute. I was like, yeah, it's
Powwow Princess. Okay.
Pocahontas, yeah. Powwow Princess. I never saw that. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it is.
Revealed Biden's plan B on loans today. Sinister. Plan B meaning that Biden his wife is pregnant and she's taking plan B in the morning. Is that what we're talking about here?
I don't think so. Anyway, the question is: Project Veritas revealed Biden's Plan B on.
Oh,
loans today.
I mentioned that he does have a plan B. I did mention that he's
Right.
not giving up. He's going to maybe send them checks for all we know. I thought first thing that popped into my mind is he's just going to buy their votes outright. He mailed them a stimulus check.
Well, how's he going to do it? He's already sent it all to Ukraine. Is he going to pull some back from Ukraine to give to?
Well, it comes back anyway through arms purchases. It's a revolving credit card. You know that.
Anyway, Senate in Chief. We all know the judge won't grant bail, so here's some commissary money for Eric. Thank you.
Oh, we could put it on his books. Even when he's in there, we could put it on his books. I mean, I've had friends in prison. Not allowed U.S. citizenship until
Chinese were not allowed U.S. citizenship until 1943. Okay, yeah, I believe it. Tarkina Meyer, Mark's thoughts on the new details and judge order on the Menendez brothers.
I know they've been trying to get out, claiming that they're orphans, but I don't know what the new evidence is, other than they're poor orphans without wigs. So I have to look at that. I haven't heard anything.
They've got like 35, 40 years in, so it's not like
it was a brutal crime. I mean,
it was, but there were questions about.
Oh no, I agree. I agree.
Michael Hebner.
Richie's grandson.
Andy L. Commissary Fund. You'll need snacks.
Oh, he will, Annie. That's for sure. And he's going to use that to get snowballs. He likes Hostess snowballs. If anybody wants to mail those in, the snowballs. That's what Eric likes.
With a file, right? Whatever it is, the CIA did it. From Johnny Nine
I wouldn't
Fingers.
be surprised, Nine Fingers. I wouldn't be surprised.
BTK Hunley, aka Corn Pop, will ask for prison equity. Cute.
They're now adding on DIE tips onto certain restaurants, and I don't know if this is Northern California. In other words, when you get the auto tip thing on the bottom of your bill.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You're saying it like Gad said. That's funny. Yeah, DEI, but it is. I like DIE better.
Diversity, okay, well, whatever it is, it's now on the bottom.
Inclusion.
It's now on the bottom of your tipping to donate to the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, 10 or 50. This is separate from your tip to your waitress, by the way. You know, it's separate.
Why not? Have you noticed the tips everywhere there? I mean, if you buy a product online in an off place, they actually have a tip point. I'm like, I'm tipping you for a web form? What the hell?
So it's ridiculous. There's a homeless guy in front of my house who's got a MasterCard machine that I could slide my card in if I want to give him money.
Well, it's sick, but you know what? I actually thought about it. I'm like, that's sort of genius, because even if only 1% of the people are suckers enough to do that, you're just getting free money.
Well, Janice Hahn, one of the top county supervisors here in LA, came out with the new numbers on homeless. It's up 10% in LA from the year before. And she said she was very disappointed by the numbers. And then she went off to eat dinner with her friends, she said.
Oh, she wanted 20% rise?
I don't know, but it was up 10. And this was after massive pushback, Herculean massive pushback, like the Berlin airlift. It went up 10%.
Of course it did.
I know.
Great show, you guys. Thanks, Harold. Hey, honey, I'm giving money to the conspiracy bros.
That's funny.
That's funny. Dad's badge number, and that's his pick. You two bring the info and the dots. Thank you. Drinking from out of my team, Oswald.
Whoa. That's impressive, Brian. Thank you, Brian. Whoa. Whoa. Where's my bell of justice?
Now we got a Slack. We have an unfortunate team Groubert that I can show you.
That's all we have? That's all we have?
Well, that's all I have ready to display. I don't have a team Oswald. Oh, wait. No, I take it back. I do. Team Oswald.
Wow. I got to get that one. There
are links down below to get glassware in the description. If anybody would like any, Ziggy Shrugs does those, and great stuff.
Where are we with these subs now before you read the next thing here? Are we at 85 or something? Or
no, we're a little above that. Hold on. Let me see if we picked up any. We may get to 88 in the next day or two, depending. We're at
But
87,
Harold,
841.
I was talking to Harold here briefly. I was talking specifically about electric blues.
Okay.
Just to answer that question.
So, let me read out the question because I am trying to remember everybody who's listening to read them.
Again, I'm not talking about the starting of the blues, which comes out of the Mississippi Delta. I was talking about the electrification of blues out of Chicago.
Harold wrote
specifically with harmonica players. I know people take little segments of what I say, Eric, and they just go.
No,
Groubert said.
let me read the question, then you can answer it. It makes so much more sense when people listen. I thought the blues started on Beale Street, Memphis, Tennessee, on the bank of the Mississippi. And as Mark just said, he was talking about the electric blues, a specific target. Sparty Matt.
Oh, that's the city. Yeah, that's the town. That's the town. Hamtramck. I couldn't pronounce it. Thanks, Bob. Hamtramck. A name that rolls off your tongue. Hamtramck, Michigan. Whatever that sounds like, has a full Muslim city council that has removed pride flags from the city.
I love it when you have the collision and diversity.
Wow, it's just when diverse worlds collide. Wow.
The amazing Blumpkin. I will say this about Kiev. If you get out of the supermarket, two guys with Uzis in the foolishness, do you feel lucky?
That's funny.
Yeah, well, we used to have people here called police.
Mm-hmm.
And now in places, especially like California, they've just made crime legal. So, whatever.
Well, robbery is legal, that's for sure.
Basil Beshkov. Tom Cruise was given the Kanye treatment after he came out against Big Pharma.
I don't know about that.
He's still working.
Yeah, he's still. I don't know what kind of treatment that is, but Kanye. Just a note on Kanye. He's hooked up with a cat named Dove Charney as a partner. And Dove Charney was a man who was part of a group called American Apparel, and he was run out of his own company. So it's a great combination. I think Charney might be Israeli, and there might be some news coming out of that pretty soon.
By the way, American Apparel makes me think of Ryan Holiday, who did marketing for American Apparel, who wrote one of the best books I've ever read.
Oh, yeah, I have that book.
Trust
that's a great.
Me, I'm lying.
Yes, that's a great book. I really recommend it. He's really smart.
Yeah, great. But and he talked about what he did in American Apparel to get the free prep.
Oh, I forgot about that. I forgot about that book.
BTK in Mexico, I was told during a robbery, drop down because they're firing from the roof across the street.
Interesting. Very good. Very
I hope you weren't the one doing the robbery.
Yeah.
Gino, soap on a rope or extra slippery soap. Oh, you guys are cruel. You're cruel. Okay. JS, always amazing. Happy holiday weekend to both of you. Happy holiday weekend to you.
To you too.
And Brian Kirby, I recently found your videos and I've been binging them. Great work. Thank you, Brian. And Oswald is here to thank you as well. And if you would like an Oswald, people are buying Oswalds every week. Again, link in the description. It's with our t-shirts, or you can go to ericunley.com/Oswald.
Oh, and thanks for the PayPal money for the books and Cash App or whatever. We found a book that was $989, and it was Robert Oswald's book. Luckily, Eric found a PDF of it, which I printed out to save the day. But it's crazy out there for a pimp. Really, it really is.
Yeah, it is. And we're getting into last call.
Last call. This is last call. I don't care what you're saying, but it's last call for alcohol.
Patrick Washburn, any thoughts about Nudie Cohen, the North Hollywood?
We should do a story. I would. You know what? I consider that. It's a fascinating story. Thank you. That's a good idea.
All right, we'll
Nudie
write
Cohen's
it up.
a fascinating guy.
Okay, write down the list. And by the way, that's a rarity. We not that.
No. I'm telling you
that.
the truth. If you have a good ideas, let us know. If not, we'll never do it. We'll never do it. But Nudie Cohen's a good idea.
All right, Lord, we got some tips that are coming in here. Lundpix on locals wrote, "God is great."
Oh, okay. That's good. Very good.
Grammy Kins sent a $10 tip. Big city liberals are always eager to damage life for human beings who aren't big city liberals. Can't wait to have barracks full of dopers overrunning our farms in small towns. God save the real world from big city liberals.
This is going to be interesting. I mean, it may never come to fruition, but
wow. JJC Noel sent a $5 tip. Cofer Black was on the board of Burisma at the same time as Hunter Biden in Ukraine. Cofer Black, Raytheon, and right-hand man at CIA to Theodore Shakely. CIA in Ukraine, big time.
Interesting.
Great. Rogue Thunder is sharing his Come On Bobby Ziggy Craftwork, because there is a Come On Bobby glass.
Right on. You know, if I do this cameo thing, I'm going to do all the imitations for a cameo, which somebody's trying to talk me into. I have my doubts that this will work, but if you want it, let me know.
Professor Tom.
Professor Tom, if you want a cameo of any of these imitations, let me know.
All right. Professor Tom sent a tip. It's been a while since I've heard my name, so I'm tipping again.
Okay.
Professor Tom. Okay, Professor Tom again. Will you upload the Robert Oswald PDF to locals? Perhaps.
Perhaps, depending.
And let me go back here. Okay, I think that is it on the
my God. Last call. This is it, folks. I don't want to hear about it in an hour from Hunley that he didn't get your question.
Here's the biggest tip, though. Seriously, don't necessarily need money. Please tell a friend, subscribe. It really does help. It doesn't cost anything. It helps us immensely. We're working really hard trying to get over at least the 100,000 hurdle to get some bigger some names for interviewing and things like that, and others who may join us on Freeform Fridays in the future. Now, what is it? I'm not going to go into next week on Freeform Friday, but what do we have coming Tuesday, Mark?
I'm not going to tell you. I'm not sorry.
Are you going to at least tell me this weekend?
I'll tell you this weekend. All right. Are we good? Here's a guy. All right. Look, it's got to end somewhere.
Thurston Howell the Third is at the end. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. And all kidding aside, the support does mean everything to me. I really do hope that nothing comes out of this situation in Santa Fe. And I have a grill stream tomorrow. I probably will be talking about my situation on the grill stream on Locals tomorrow at unstructured.locals.com. Anybody who wants to join, hang out. I do it every Saturday. And other than that, Mark's radio appearance also will be uploaded.
That was great. Yeah, I had a good one yesterday. That was really cool.
8 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. That will appear on Locals for anybody for free. If you follow us on Locals, you automatically just hear it. There's no problem.
Thank you. I'm doing a show with Dr. Rainer Fulmich, the international lawyer who's been fighting the COVID battle tomorrow on Zoom. I don't know where he puts it. He's going to release it, so he's probably recording it. So I'll give you an update on that next week. He's an interesting man out of Germany, a lawyer who's been suing corporations, Pfizer type corporations.
Cool. I'll definitely share the links out, and you'll tweet it out. And everybody follow us on Twitter. That's free too. At Hunley Eric, at Lord Buckley, and we will see you Tuesday.
Woohoo!